Hello, my fine friends. Welcome back to Destination Discourse. I'm your host, Stuart Butler, joined today with Adam Stoker. And Happy New Year to you, Adam. This is the first recording we're doing in 2026.
Oh, it was so nice to spend a couple weeks, didn't talk to you, didn't get on a Zoom call with you, didn't record with you. I was sitting there thinking, why has this been such a peaceful holiday season? And I thought it was, the spirit that I felt around Christmas or, the motivation for the new year. And then I realized, no, the peace came from not talking to Stuart for a few weeks.
So, from this, I can gather your resolution isn't to be nice to me this year. Is that what you're
No,
saying?
oh no. Yeah, that ruined the show.
I've been accused of bullying you before on this show. I kind of feel like you're bullying me right now. I don't know. I might play the victim this year and just like not tolerate this nonsense that you're throwing out at me. I don't know.
So playing the victim and not tolerating nonsense, those are two very different
Well, I
things.
usually play the aggressor against you, right? So I'll be the recipient of your rate your shenanigans and yeah,
Let's give it a try.
call it out. If nothing, we're going to keep this show interesting for the audience. But nothing's more interesting for the audience than great guests. And we have another one back again today, following up on a previous conversation. Welcome back to the show, Emily Zertuche. How are you?
Hey, welcome. I'm happy to be here and just ready to keep diving in.
Sorry you had to witness that. Whatever that was just then. Sorry you had to witness that. But we're
I
glad
love
you're
a little
back.
banter. You got to have a
I
little
tell you,
banter in January.
we had a great time last time you were on the show. I mean, we recorded that a few weeks ago now. I don't know when this one's going to get published, but it'll be a few weeks for the audience as well. And I got to tell you, we just ran out of time. We had a good conversation. You definitely hurt my brain a lot, and you came up with some zinger phrases, which I really liked. Hopefully, we'll bring some of those back to the front again today. But I would suggest anyone that hasn't heard that episode with Emily, I would go back and listen to that again before
Yeah.
for the first time before you do this. I don't remember off the top of my head what episode it was. It was like
The
61 or
Chris
62. Do you
Christmas
remember?
episode.
Yeah, we
It was
released it. I
that. It
believe it
was
was
the one
Christmas
published on
Day.
December 25th. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 61 or 62. 62, I think that sounds right. Um,
I trust you.
no, one of those. Go listen to all our episodes. Go back to episode one, listen all the way through until you get to Emily's second episode. So this is your third episode you've been on the show. And I think it's going to be a fun conversation again today. So we're looking
Yeah.
forward to it. But you know what else we're looking forward to?
Oh, do I ever?
Oh, I don't know if I can hold my anticipation much longer. It is time for the greatest segment in all of entertainment. Oh, and Adam, great
Yeah.
news for you.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, I'm rusty. I didn't share the sound.
yeah, we can't hear it right now. It's
I
okay.
was jamming out over here.
I think this episode's off to a rough start all around, but it's okay. But there's good news, Adam. When
What's
the
that?
YouTube video comes through, when I download the gallery view with screen share, your big old head is not blocking the lyrics. So even though you're blocking it for Emily and me, the audience can see the lyrics in full glory. So we're good.
Now I'm back. And you know what? I'm for the audience, Stuart. So as long as I'm not blocking them, that's what matters.
That's true.
We did it.
Wow. I don't
Beautiful.
know. I feel like it's time, man, that we maybe changed it.
Okay, you know what? This is my assignment. I'm going to work on a new jingle. It's time, and I need the combination of me liking it and you hating it an equal amount as we did on the previous one. It's going to be
Hmm.
hard, but it's an undertaking I'm ready for, and I feel like I'm capable of it.
Why change
Okay.
the jingle?
Well, the audience is speaking here
Yep.
live.
Yep.
It's, it kind of catches on after a while. It sticks in your head.
Let's
So
let's let's do a test. Let's try a new one, and then we'll have the audience vote and see what they want to do. I don't
You
okay.
know
know.
what?
Hmm.
Maybe there's a Discord that Emily's created. Maybe we test it in the Discord.
Oh, there you go.
Yes. It's that Discord needs to be resurrected. It will be. It worked at DI,
Yeah.
so continuing it now, DI Marcom's coming up in February. Maybe that's where the resurrection begins.
That'd be amazing. And Adam and I are going to be there. Maybe some special guests will appear on stage with us. Who knows? So maybe that'll be a good time to
Good
resurrect it.
time.
So today's Stu's News is kind of an interesting one. It's a little out of left field. We're recording this on, I guess, the 6th of January, and this was an announcement just made. But L'Oreal, the cosmetic firm, which obviously Adam is intimately familiar with, and NVIDIA just made a big announcement, a big dog and pony show, and a press release and everything about how they're going to be collaborating together on a series of different products and methodologies. And what's interesting to me about this and why I'm sort of bringing this to the tourism space is, they're talking about consumer-facing products, but they're also talking about internal operations. They're talking about how they're going to be leveraging AI for, okay, they've got media assets, they want to splice into different formats. They're going to use AI for that. But they're also, some of these consumer products are really interesting in terms of helping people individualize their experience with L'Oreal and how they use their products and how they choose their products and how they continue to engage with the audience beyond the product itself. So what I love about this is, in my mind, exactly where the DMO space should be going, because it's collecting first-party data significantly. It's building that one-to-one relationship with their consumer, and then it's expanding that relationship beyond the core product, right? To making the consumer and the brand a symbiotic relationship that adds value to both of them, right? The more you use L'Oreal, the better they'll be able to serve you. The more they serve you, the better the experience is going to be. And so I think this is, for me, one of the first times I've seen a big brand really publicly come out with someone like NVIDIA and say, no, we're all in on AI. This isn't just a line item on our budget. This isn't just something we're dabbling with to update our emails to make us sound smarter. This is something that we're fully integrating throughout our core of our organization. So it's really fascinating. I'd love to see destinations take this and sort of do the tourism version of this. So, Emily, I'll let you respond first, and then we'll let Adam, the expert on L'Oreal, really, obviously, we'll let him have his say in a second.
No, I think what you brought to the table is a really fantastic example of where we're headed as we start marketing our brands in the next couple of years. What I found fascinating when I looked through this was there were actually a couple of competitors that vowed to never use AI. I was looking at Dove, and they put in theirs that we're making a promise to our consumers that we're not going to leverage AI in anything that we do. And so that's going to set a baseline into the stark contrast we're going to see between these two competing brands of, one is staying true to their values, but is that really shooting themselves in the foot, as this will become the norm with any way of brand? And my thing that I'm thinking about this is, yes, adopting this into how we as tourism organizations, put our brand out there and how we market. I think it's going to be really essential that we really look at these bigger brands and how they are using and leveraging AI to adapt their different types of marketing, because it will be hitting the right people at the right time. And maybe it is something that people want to see. Whereas someone like me, I figured out my skin type in 17 magazine. So I'm good. But this may become the norm in the next 5 to 10 years. So traditional
Yeah.
branding, as we know it, may feel like a VHS tape in the age of streaming.
Wow. You're good with analogies, Emily. I really love your analogies.
What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know that Dove is going to be able to stay true to that commitment of not using AI, right?
Yeah.
I think that'd be like, I'm not good at analogies, but you could take any technology and say we're never
Hurry,
going to
Emily,
do it.
give him an analogy.
At some point, we're never going to use computers. Like
Yeah.
but yeah, I think L'Oreal embracing this, I don't think it's a reaction to people like Dove, right? I think it's just a strategic advantage that they see, and they're just going to jump in two-footed. I think it's really smart.
Yeah.
Adam?
Yeah, well, first of all, joke's on you, because I did a big project on L'Oreal in the advertising program at BYU, so I'm more familiar with it than maybe you think I am.
Or
But
maybe I knew that and I was actually being literal. You just assume everything I say is sarcastic.
that's got to be it. That's got to be
Yeah.
it.
See,
It could
joke's
be.
really on you.
This is actually, I feel like a really, I was glad you shared this because I felt like it opened my mind to the potential for AI's role, or what the potential can be for AI's role in the consumer relationship. And what I'm picturing is most brands, the biggest challenge that they have is helping the consumer envision themselves using or participating or being a part of the brand or having a relationship with the brand. It's aspirational, right? And if you think about what NVIDIA and L'Oreal are creating here, is essentially the ability for me to show you what you would be like using my products, right? So I
Mhm.
actually foresee this heading towards L'Oreal sending you a video of yourself using the products they want you to buy and showing you what life will be like with their products. And my
Yeah.
guess is you'll show somebody having the time of their life, but yes, they're wearing that shade of lipstick. But the influencer is not someone else. The influencer is you. And I think that's going to be a fascinating wrinkle on the marketing side of things. And if you extrapolate that to what it could do for destinations, what if we can actually, when you talk about having a relationship with your customer, give them a one-to-one experience of what it would be like if they were in your destination for a week. And what if AI could create a documentary of your trip that you haven't taken yet to Myrtle Beach, right? Like I think that's the type of thing where this is going. We use influencers and creators to help people aspire to use our products or to participate with our brands. I think the next phase is we're going to use you and demonstrate
Hmm.
you are the influencer. And I think that's going to be a massive shift.
Yeah. I could see destinations doing a sort of a shtick version of that first, right? Like where it's not actually a good utility, but it's like, hey, come experience Myrtle Beach without actually having to come to Myrtle Beach or Corpus Christi or wherever. And like we'll do here's your camera roll from your experience. But I kind of I do agree that long term, like putting people closer to the brand, closer to the destination, closer to the experience is going to nudge more people into trying it, you know? And the brilliant thing about this with L'Oreal is they basically making it frictionless for everyone to become an ambassador and an advocate for their products. You
Hmm.
know, so you're going to go to this app tool, whatever it is, to see what you'll look like. Oh, I can share that to my social feed, and then I can share before and afters, and then I can share me with the real product. And like it's a collaboration with their consumer. And I think this is where we're heading. We're going away from like these sort of mainstream influencers or niche content creators, and everyone's going to be a content creator. We talked about this a little bit last time when you guys were talking about the meta glasses, right? And how it's just going to be more and more frictionless for folks to share their life experience. And I think L'Oreal's jumping ahead of a lot of people with this engagement now with the consumer. They're going to collect that data, they're going to build those relationships, they're going to have the infrastructure to do this better than anyone else. I love it.
I find it really interesting because you look at Instagram being one of the top social media platforms right now for our generation, generations, under us. But you look at Gen Alpha and the decline of the influencer and how people even use Instagram, it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to be what it is right now. And it makes me wonder what is the future of social media? And there's going to be a decline in this influencer type marketing or this influencer social media. And it's so funny. You think about 2 years ago when everyone's putting so much investment into influencer partnerships. And the future is telling us not really everyone's going to be an influencer anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone's going to be an influencer.
Right. Yeah,
So
everyone's so no one
fascinating.
is, right? Because everyone is.
Yeah.
And part of me wonders, and I'm really just sort of thinking more out loud here. You know, Adam's talked a lot about attention, right? And we distinguish between awareness, which is the old funnel, and attention today. And it's interesting because trust I think is still going to be an important component to decision making, but I think increasingly attention is, and so how you see things, it's almost at times going to be less important about who the purveyor of the information is and what the information is probably going to become more invaluable in terms of getting attention. Like, is it novel? Is it interesting? Did it jar me out of the doom scroll? Um, did it connect with me emotionally? Those are the things that are going to affect decisions more. So I think attention, regardless of who the content creator is, and therefore democratizing influences to becoming everyone, I think that's where we're heading. It seems obvious.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Cool. Alrighty. So I did pull up the last episode. So it is episode 61. And we ended up naming it, and this is a paraphrase on what you said, but I needed it to be a little more algorithm-y because you use better words than this. But has our ability to measure outpaced our ability to explain? That's what we named the episode. It's doing really well, Emily. You may be on a good run here to sneak the top spot back from Dan. We'll see, but it's
Oh, rack the numbers up. I'm coming for you,
yeah.
Dan.
So I know last time, we talked a lot about, can we even answer the question, did it work?
Yeah.
We talked a lot about like the narrative side of things and how we sort of throw a lot of data at our board to justify things, but are we really answering the right questions? So obviously you've had some time to think about this since the last episode, and we gave you a little homework assignment too in the last episode. So I'd love to sort of first just give a brief recap of what we talked about last episode for the folks that haven't gone back and listened to episode 61. But then, like, where have you changed? Where have you
Yeah.
deviated, or where do you still stand by everything you said?
For the most part, yes, but I do want to ask you a question. Do you give every guest homework, or is it something that you're
It's
doing
a
for
new
me?
bit we're doing, It's just, we're gonna try it out. You are our guinea pig. We're gonna see if it works. If you come back with some great research, then we might start it being the next, yeah, it's gonna be Adam's homework, Stu's news and Adam's homework. And we'll find an alliteration of that.
Uh, yeah, let's make me the assigner of homework. That's great.
Homework
You
over
get
the
that
break.
teacher vibe.
Lovely. Well, that's a
All right.
first.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll recap first because it was a lot, and I'm sorry if I fried some brains, but so I really believe that we're at a pretty weird inflection point for the travel industry because for a long time we've been on this massive spending spree. We're buying up every data service we can find, flight traffic, social sentiment. We're looking for social media, economic impact reports. There's really so many things and so many data vendors. And that's what the main gist of the problem is because individually, each one of these vendors they're fine and were purchased to solve a specific problem at a specific time for specific audiences. But when you put it together collectively, it kind of becomes a mess. And so this overabundance, which we called in the Christmas episode, the data hangover. Um, and the data hangover is essentially that we've overaccumulated data without a unifying narrative, which basically makes it impossible to give a straight answer in the boardroom because you have your own data that has strong potential to fighting against itself as you've accidentally bought into generating competing truths, not necessarily truth through your overabundance of data. So collectively, it becomes narratively incoherent. And that's where I think there's this quiet problem that we've kind of had for a long time as DMOs. But the problem is, and going back to Stu's news, is that it's about to become very loud and very much a public liability in the age of AI. So we're moving past AI, just writing text, just making pretty pictures, because that's really what it was when we first got ChatGPT. And how fun was it to doing this? And now, like, we're entering this era of agentic AI, and we're talking about autonomous systems. We're talking about ways, and we're using it in ways that we can research, plan. We're already having conversations that it books entire trips start to finish without a human in the loop until the final click. And these agents are extremely rational or becoming more and more rational. There's not as much mistakes that it's making, especially, well, I digress. A little bit of this past ChatGPT, I feel, has been making a little bit more mistakes than usual. But as
Hmm.
they clean that up, um, these are going to be relentless scrutinizers to our data. And if your website claims, for example, we're a top friendly, family friendly destination, but the AI agent scrapes 10 other data sources that shows contradictory pricing or thin evidence, that's going to flag that inconsistency. It won't be something that politely ignores all your marketing fluff. And I think that's where we could get ourselves in trouble because it'll just route the traveler to a destination with a story that actually holds up. And that credibility bar can be raised, or the credibility bar is going to be raised dramatically for all of us.
Yeah. You're 100% right on everything you said. And, we've been thinking a lot about what does trust mean and how important is trust in this age of AI? Because I agree with you. The latest version of ChatGPT seems to be less good in some ways than the previous version, right? We've all assumed, hey, AI is always going to get better in a linear fashion, and it does seem like that we're going to have some ups and downs and some unintended consequences. Um, but I think the one thing it does do well is it tries to be objective, but it does have a bias, right? It does try to placate the user. Like Adam loves the sycophantic side of AI. He loved it when they put that piece back in.
Boy,
But
that
I
victim
do
thing didn't last very long, did
no, it
it?
didn't. But it does tend to be agreeable with me and take my biases into its account, right? So knowing that I'm in Myrtle Beach and I work from Myrtle Beach, it does tend to be a little dishonest and less objective and a little bit on my side, which is a problem. But I think that's a temporary state. I do think we're probably
Yeah.
going to get to where you're talking about. I think in the interim, we got to figure out what is it that it is paying attention to that we can push the lever pull the lever or push the button to influence
Yeah.
the decisions, because there's a lot of arbitrary nature to it right now. It's a black box that we don't really know. Like if I go ask a specific question like what's the best this or what are the top these, it gives me answers, but I really have no way to discern right now how it came to that conclusion or if it's just uniquely to me or whatever. And if the three of us went and did that same question right now, I guess we would see different things. You want to do a live experiment? You want to try it? You guys have ChatGPT open or need? Adam, did
Yeah.
you fix ChatGPT to where you
I have
still
not.
have
I
it?
would have to do it on Gemini.
All right, let's go to Gemini. Let's do it.
Gemini?
And yeah, I've not used Gemini nearly as much as ChatGPT, although I've started using it more because it does have less problems right now. All right, what do we
All
want to
right.
ask? What is the best family friendly beach
Do you want me to
destination?
share my screen
If
and
you
do
want,
this?
sure.
Let's see. I was not prepared for this live test, Stuart. This will be
All right.
fun. Let's
What is
go.
the best family friendly beach destination? That's what I put in.
Oh man, something's going on here with Zoom. Let's see. Okay.
So I get Turks and Caicos, Clearwater.
Are you guys seeing my screen or is it
I'm
not
not
working?
looking. I'm looking at my screen right now. Hold on. Yes, I'm
Yes.
seeing your screen. What'd you
Okay.
get?
Best overall San Diego, California. And
Yeah,
my question was, what's the best family-friendly beach destination?
same
Best for
same verbiage as me.
toddlers.
Yeah.
Okay. Best for toddlers is Clearwater Beach, Florida. Best international is Turks and Caicos. Best for active families, Hilton Head, South Carolina.
Shout out to Hilton Head.
There you go. That's the four.
All right, Emily, what'd you get?
Interesting. Number one, best overall and safest waters, Turks and Caicos. Number two, best for activities and entertainment, San Diego, California. Number three, best drive to and affordable, Gulf Shores, Alabama, and Destin, Florida. And best adventure and nature, Maui, Hawaii.
You know what's interesting is even the categories are different, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
What
Yeah,
the heck?
that is interesting.
but there's a few that are on all of them. Like we all got Turks and Caicos, right?
We did.
Interesting, you know?
Mine says best for toddlers and luxury. I guess, does it believe I
I
have
don't
it?
know that I'd want to take my toddler to Turks and
Yeah.
Caicos. I'll be
Do
honest.
toddlers and luxury go together?
I guess I don't know.
So mine was my category where Turks was on it was best for younger kids and calm waters. So like
Mm.
that's really interesting, right? But if I go to ChatGPT, I'm gonna ask the same question. What's the best family friendly destination? Because it knows me more, and I've done a lot more conversations about Myrtle Beach. I wonder if it's gonna. I didn't put beach because it came up with Orlando. I'm like, wait a minute.
Well, Stuart, you're not gonna like the answers
What
here.
did you
All
get?
right. So I asked it, I said, let's focus on the United States. Give me
Yeah,
the top 10 in the US. And it's got San Diego, number one, Clearwater Beach, Florida, number two, Hilton Head, South Carolina, number three, Maui, Hawaii, number four, Destin, Florida,
so
number five.
so this is based on and you're still in Gemini. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm in Gemini.
Um, Emily, go to ChatGPT. I'd be interested to see
I
what it
just
says to you.
did.
And
It says Corpus Christi.
yeah, and I got Myrtle Beach. See, therein
That's
lies the
bias.
problem.
There's bias.
Yeah. So
Isn't that interesting?
yeah, and then it lists out the reasons why.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna. That was a kind of a little convoluted exercise, but I think what we're illustrating there is we're going to be living in our own sort of influenced bubbles of truth,
Hmm.
and so we're just going to have to be
Right.
mindful of that, right? And so
Well,
how
and
do
think about the
we?
power these
Right.
platforms have, right? Because
Yeah,
what that demonstrated for you is they're already crafting the results and experience just for you.
yeah,
That's a lot of power.
it is right, and we got to figure out how do we influence more folks. And we're not even in the area yet, which is inevitably coming, where they're going to monetize presence, right? They're going to have some form of, although OpenAI came out and said, hey, we're not going to focus on the advertising side right now. We're going on the core,
Yeah.
all 100% on the core product. At some point, folks are going to start finding a way pay to play, right? It's
That's as
inevitable.
believable as their nonprofit status was at the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. So, until that time, how do we influence it? Because it's not like early SEO where you could make a test in real time and see if you showed up higher in the ranking and everyone saw the same ranking in the early SEO, right? So it's tough. But I think if we want to bring it back to the kind of
Yeah.
conversation, even with our data, we're going to have to continue to question, if I'm being devil's advocate, whether our AI that we're consulting on our data and are we objectively telling the truth, it's going to be probably biased to us, but then is the Adam's version of it going to have the same bias? So when we sort of say, hey, Myrtle Beach is definitively the best XYZ, we might be saying yes to ourselves with our own bubble, but Adams might not. So I think therein lies the challenge.
Right. There. Go ahead,
Go ahead.
Adam.
Well, I was just going to say, I asked it a question. I said, what bias did you include in my results that make them different from other people's results?
Oh,
Just to
great
see what it
question.
would say.
Oh.
And
Ooh.
it said, number one, the ease of access bias. I prioritize beaches that have infrastructure. You won't find remote hidden gems like the rugged coast of Oregon or the wilder parts of Kauai on my list. And it said the logic is because I have a family. Number two, the calm water bias. Again, safety, right? So it knows I have a family. So it's telling me Clearwater and Destin because of calm water. The activity
Mhm.
density bias, the predictable weather bias, the standard definition of family bias. They defaulted to the nuclear family because that's my family structure. Isn't that interesting?
Mhm.
Wow. So it could be a good
Ask,
thing.
ask it if it had any bias related to your previous activities.
Ask it, say it again.
Like, was there any bias related to your previous conversations, specifically related to your previous conversations with Gemini? Because the only thing it's really picked up on is you have a family and you said family friendly. But I'm wondering if like where you've searched before or anything like that came into effect. I don't know if this is going to be great audio listening for the people for the audience, but it's really fascinating to me. for us to be doing these sort of live
It is fascinating.
thought
Maybe we
experiments.
encourage the audience to do the same while we're doing
Yeah,
it and see what
I
they come up
see.
with.
You're a way better host than us. Hey, audience, why don't you make the same search and then tell us in the comments what you found? That'd
There
be
you
great.
go.
There you
And
go.
if they do, that means they've reached halfway through the podcast.
That's
Yeah,
exactly right.
yeah, that's a great way to measure it.
That's right.
It says no, no bias from our previous conversations. It's because I specifically asked for the family-friendly destinations, it says.
Oh, interesting.
But that
Hmm.
doesn't explain why your results are different.
Yeah. I mean, there was similar and there was some crossover, but yeah, that's really fascinating. Well, that's cool.
Fascinating.
Well, Emily, where do you want to take this from here? I know you did some homework for us.
Well, I did homework. So let me talk about some of the things that I've learned in my homework, in my homework
Okay.
study. First of all, I love going to McKinsey and Skift surveys. They always put out great information. Encourage anyone that doesn't do that on a regular basis to very much do it. But there's a 2025 McKinsey survey that shows that 80% of travel execs plan to implement agentic AI at scale soon. So similar to L'Oreal. But nearly 40% aren't using it right now. And so that's a massive infrastructure lag. And that's going to expose the weaknesses that DMOs currently have when we go back to the conversation on this overabundance of data, yet an inability to coherently explain your narrative. So
Hmm.
let's look at the trust gap. So I'm pulling in my notes. Accenture found that 80% of travelers are already using generative AI, and they report 90% confidence in the information that the AI gives them, but only 2% trusted enough to let it book without oversight.
Yeah.
So that 88% gap is where human scrutiny lives. So just like this test we just did, that big gap, that's where there's human scrutiny. That's the moment the traveler asks AI, Adam, AI, do you know that if this is the right place for me and my family? If the AI points to fragmented or exaggerated info from the DMO, poof, there's your credibility. It's gone. So what if, we're looking at the sources and it is accidentally fragmented or exaggerated on the other end, not necessarily on the user end. And people are more so looking to blame outward than inward at first. But the big problem is how can we fix this? How can we get prescriptive in solving this potential of having different competing narratives in the web or in the digital space or even in the boardroom. So
Yeah.
I think, you know, thinking about this data hangover, what we need collectively, every DMO needs a coherence operating system. So Coherence OS, which is not a software, it just sounds cool. But it's true. We need a coherence operating system. And that is going to be a strategy for aligning our tech, our metrics, and our story so that we can present a single defensible narrative. So first, what DMOs need to do, and if you listen to the Christmas episode, 61, you need to pass that whiskey and Coke test. So the whiskey and Coke test is essentially, did it work? So think of your whiskey as your hard, raw proof, which is your data. And the Coke or any mixer you like is a narrative mixer. So that's the human language that makes it digestible. Most DMOs are failing because they serve either way too much Coke, it's all a sugary story, and there may be no substance. But if your biggest achievement can only be explained on slide 37 of a 40 slide deck, then you've failed. You need to present the data so simply that it's memorable and it's repeatable. And if the proof itself is flimsy, that story will not last when an AI agent digitally separates the whiskey and the Coke.
Yeah.
So coherence
Let's take a pause there. One, I think Adam's already saying we're going to rebrand Brand Revolt to Coherence is going to be the new name, and we're going to build that solution, right, Adam?
Narrative coherence.
narrative.
Narrative
I want two
coherence is what
words.
you're
Yeah.
doing. Yeah. I love that concept of sort of that intersection of all the things, right? The narrative, the technology, and the data. I think that's the sort of the triune of how we're going to be successful moving forward, and convincing people that we are
Right.
providing value because we are
Yeah.
providing value.
Yeah.
Coherence is such a good word. Um, I think we're so far away from that though, right? There's the
Yeah.
challenge, right? A lot of DMOs are really struggling because I still think on one side there's an element of DMO that is just trying to sort of keep the smoke and mirrors going, right? They're the wizard in the Wizard of Oz, and they're pulling all the levers and making all the machines work, and it looks great to the outsider, and they want everyone to believe them, but at some point the curtain's going to be pulled back. So I think there's some of those. Um, I think there's some that are so down in the data that like and maybe not the right KPIs that they're focused on, that they're sort of single-mindedly going after things like total visitors to our destination. Hey, this is the KPI that we're going to hang our hat on, and they can measure it, and then it's something that is coherent, but it's probably not telling the full story of what the actual impact is in terms of the overall prosperity of the community, things like that.
Right.
And then I think there's folks that genuinely are lost right now. Like they're sort of they have this data hangover that you talk about, where they have so much, they think it's working, but they can't quite join the dots between the two. And
Yeah.
so I think that's where I'd like to focus is how do we, for the ones that are genuinely wanting to do a good job of telling an honest, truthful story, how do we boil down the data we have? To
Hmm.
me, it starts with you agreeing as a community, and that's engaging. I often think about us as we're the intersection between the residents, the businesses, and the governments and the visitors in our community, right? That's typically and who our audience is when we're talking about this stuff. The visitors don't really count. So for engage with your residents, engage with your businesses definitely, and engage with your governments, and collectively decide what are the KPIs that really matter to us. Like, is it quality of life KPIs? Is it economic prosperity KPIs? Is it
Yeah.
sustainability KPIs? What are the top tier KPIs that we can all agree if we're measuring these things properly, and then making sure that we are measuring them accurately and we agree that they are truthful. I think that's where you got to start, right? I think with
Right.
starting with noise, we've got to start with signal, which is what are the KPIs that matter?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's an important kind of realization that everybody has to come to, though, because in order to do what you're suggesting, Stuart, there's an uncomfortable conversation coming no matter who you are. And
Hmm.
actually for all three of those groups that you mentioned, and even though the third one, they really want to do a good job, they want to demonstrate the right KPIs. Even then, you have to acknowledge with your stakeholders that we've been in an overabundance of data situation. We, as a DMO, have made the mistake of either presenting the wrong data, too much data, or focusing on KPIs that make us look good as opposed to the KPIs that actually impact the community.
Right.
And that's a delicate conversation that has to happen, because if you don't, and next month you come and you say, okay, from this point forward, these are the 10 KPIs that we're managing to, we're reporting on, and we're gonna use as our barometer of whether or not we're being successful. Somebody in that room is going to raise their hand and go, wait, so are all the other reports that you've shown me over the last 2 years irrelevant? Or were those, what have you been doing for the last two
Yeah,
years,
I don't
right?
know. I
And
mean,
if
I
you don't
think,
get in front of that conversation, you're not going to get the reaction that you're looking for. And so I think it's really important to navigate this correctly, to openly communicate with your stakeholders why you're narrowing to these KPIs.
yeah, but I think, it's a conversation that has to happen. I think it's a conversation that it has to be based in trust, right? And if you don't have the
Right.
kind of relationship with the other stakeholders that you can have an honest conversation, then that's where I would probably start before the KPIs, is building those
Right.
relationships. I think you've got to get
But
the
I'm saying
relationship straight
if you
first.
aren't forthcoming and
Yeah, but I
say,
don't think you
hey,
have
we're
to be
pivoting for
like
this reason.
completely that vulnerable to people. I think you
Hmm.
just say with, hey, like moving forward, we want to be more collaborative. We want to make sure there is coherence. We want to make sure that we all agree on where the value is coming. I wouldn't focus so much on where we haven't done a good job or where the community hasn't done a good job in the past. And I don't think you need to focus there. I would focus on what the value is that you're trying to create for the community. And I don't, in my experience, we've become a lot more radically collaborative with our community to the point where we're actually bringing elected officials and employees of our municipalities and county onto our boards. And so we're really opening up the organization to be this radical
Right.
collaboration hub within our community. I think that's a good starting point to say, hey, we're bringing everyone together. Now let's together do this. DMOs cannot live alone anymore. They cannot be an island. They cannot be doing their own thing because they know best. Like that is a recipe for disaster. Every DMO has to be an integrated part of the community. Whether you're already bolted to the Chamber of Commerce or not, you have to be a radical collaborator with your Chamber of Commerce, with your economic development, with your municipalities. You guys have to be one unified voice, and you all have to agree on tourism is good for our economy, for our residents, because ... Right? We all have to agree on that because otherwise we're all doomed.
Right, right. And I think there's just a very clear, there's so much that is changing in the world right now that I think this is the perfect time to explain why we're doing this,
Yeah.
why we're shifting, and how with this data we have the ability to prove value. I'm reading a book right now by Jerry Mueller called The Tyranny of Metrics. I really encourage y'all to read it because it's all about data and how data can be weaponized. And I did pull this quote. I don't have my Kindle, but I pasted it. There are things that can be measured. There are things that are worth measuring, but what can be measured is not always what is worth measuring. What gets measured may have no relationship to what we really want to know. The cost of measuring may be greater than the benefits. The thing that gets measured may draw effort away from the things we really care about, and measurement may provide us with distorted knowledge that seems solid but is actually deceptive.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Tell us the name
Great.
of that again. It's the Tyranny
Um,
of Metrics. Is that what
The
you said?
Tyranny of Metrics by Jerry Mueller. Mueller, not Mueller.
Got it. Yeah,
Um,
it's on my list. Um,
I did
that's
split
great.
out. I split out this coherence into three stacks because I know it's hard. It's easy to like have this conversation, but it's hard to put it into tactics. And
Yeah.
what can I, as a DMO, actually do to begin the work?
Okay.
And I think a lot of it comes into the data. It comes into this abundance of data that you currently have. That is your data stack. We have our MarTech stack. This is the one thing that we need to cure that data overdose or that hangover. So I encourage everyone, it's January, we do our harsh clean outs of our closet. It's time to do a harsh audit. Find the 20% of sources that give you 80% of your insight. Do that. Cut the zombie metrics, anything that you have that's just dead, like you've collected it.
But for the listeners, define zombie metrics. Like how do you identify the zombie metrics in your reporting?
A zombie metric is data that you've collected just because you've always collected it, even though no one uses it. I think
Yeah.
everyone has that.
Yeah, if you've never used it, like if you don't use that data point for anything, cut it. Like a great exercise everyone should do once a year is look at all the snippets of code in your tag manager or hard coded on your website. Like look at everything that you're collecting from a pixel, from whatever that you've done an experiment or a test or something. Just go through. Are we actually still using these? Because number one, that's slowing down your site because it's there. But two, it's like decluttering, like Emily said. So I would start there in terms of what tools are we still using on our website today that we don't need, that we haven't used in the last year. Cut them and then look at your dashboards, then look at your other data sources. If you're go through your subscriptions once a year. Like every
Yeah.
subscription you have, like what's hitting your credit card or your accounting team has a list of all the people, the vendors that you subscribe to something for. Go through that list every year with the team and say, how will we justify this? Would we sign up for this today, now knowing what we now know?
I think it's great to do it with the team too, because what you're doing, you get into a meeting with your teammates and you can designate that single source of truth for every metric. So it doesn't have to have the possibility of different departments showing up with dueling numbers. It's all us collectively aligning on what is the single source of truth, what is that metric. And that
Hmm.
way you can be proactive. Like you can
Yes.
publish on your DMO website your proprietary local data or your survey results, any kind of things, which best practice is to put it out there anyway. Be transparent.
Yeah.
Feed the world's digital brain of your numbers directly because an AI is going to look for those answers just as we do right now. But as the zero click search becomes more and more prominent, you want an AI to look for those numbers and you want it to cite you as the authoritative
Hmm.
source. So, make sure you're including yourself as a source, especially if it's going to be republished on your city website.
Hmm.
PDFs are crawlable as long as you save and upload them correctly, but make sure your source is on there too. You have to make sure your source is uploaded so that AI can crawl correctly. Um, and
Yeah.
that's really the first piece of this coherent stack is one, do the audit. Make sure you clean up the zombie metrics, get rid of clean out your closet. But part two is moving past the vanity metrics, which I know people love internally. Marketers love vanity metrics like likes, impressions, all of these things that at the end of the day, your board members, especially those board members that are from economic development, they speak government. They don't speak marketing. So we need
Hmm.
causal measurement and counterfactual thinking. And that was a big piece of what we talked about in the last podcast is you need it to be causal. You can't answer a causal question with a data number. It has to be counterfactual reasoning for them to completely digest that information and take it with them. So it's asking what would have happened if we hadn't ran that campaign. A wonderful example that I love is Visit Mesa. They're awesome of a DMO that's defined their narrative because they didn't just say like, oh, we're inclusive. They really proved it through, pursuing the autism certification. They tracked the businesses that were trained. They added their family satisfaction scores on their website. So that data in itself, like that's a great example. It proves the story and it forced every number to answer that question, that causal question of compared to what, or so what, or did it work? Those questions are answered just by being able to prove something that they're creating as a narrative authority.
Yeah. I'll give you an example too of where when we use these vanity metrics, even if it's unspoken, it's understood by your board, by your community, that they're vanity metrics. I was in a meeting with I'm not going to disclose what we were talking about or who it was, but I was in a meeting with a leader within our board this week, and I said, we were having this conversation about really defining better KPIs. And I'm a pretty candid guy, as you guys know. And I said, I want to get away from using BS metrics and gave a specific number that we tout all the time. It's a number that we get from a reputable vendor in our space. And it's a number that we champion from the rooftops about this is why we're great at what we do, but it's a vanity metric. And I said, I want to get away from BS. And he goes, I'm glad you realized that that's a BS metric because everyone on the board rolls their eyes whenever you use that metric. So
Uh, so they
they
need to be
know,
transparent too,
yeah,
you
they
know.
know, we know. We're all playing a game. We got
But
to get away from that game.
Stuart, you do go to number three. So we start with data, and then number two is, making sure that that data is being received and it's the right thing that we're putting on our websites. But three is that
Hmm.
narrative because,
Hmm.
if we were to go bottom up, the umbrella is the narrative, and that's that narrative coherence that we talked about. Because that
Hmm.
is, if we were to go to this being an OS system, that's your user interface. That's the top layer that only the board and everyone sees on the outside. So for your narrative, you need to define your narrative pillars, which most demos already have. They use it in their content, they use it in their media pillars, but use those narrative pillars for everything that you do. If you already have those, that's perfect. There's your leverage. And, be consistent with it because you can't tell tourists, like, oh, we're wild and we're fun, but you tell the politicians, we attract high value only visitors. Like,
Hmm.
AI is going to find that contradiction. So you have to use local voices. Um, find your museum director to write your art guide, or make sure you're satisfying Google's eat framework,
Hmm.
which is what is it? Experience, expertise, authoritativeness, trustworthiness.
Trustworthiness. Yeah.
Yeah. So if your narrative is literally voiced by recognized local figures, it's backed by data, has the experience and the evidence, AI is going to deem it more trustworthy, and therefore more likely to surface it as you being the narrative voice. So in those first 90 days, or let's say Q1, this is the time we're going to put all of this together. If you're a small to mid-sized DMO, you can do this by establishing, an internal task force with your team. Think about who can be this coherence task force and run an AI search audit. Sit down with ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, ask it questions about your destination. And if it's giving you the outdated info, start proactively correcting it for the record. This is a really great day-to-day thing that we do with our content team. They're always searching and looking for discrepancies or looking to see if we're the narrative authority. And this is something that anyone can do with limited budget. And for the large DMOs, you can prepare for shifts like Google's AI trip planning mode, which could and already is bypassing websites entirely. So once that system's installed, you just create this ongoing governance, because if we are able to do this biannual narrative audit, run the AI simulation drills, get your team together, pretend you are a skeptical politician and use AI. Ask the uncomfortable questions. What
Yeah.
evidence do you have to show this worked? Use your AI and show me
Yeah.
data on safety. Show me your data on, is this really true that you are an inclusive destination? So where you stumble is where you need to get stronger.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think there's two sides to this, right? Because we're conflating a couple of things because you sort of shifted a little bit towards the consumer facing narratives that we're pushing out, like, okay, we're kid friendly or we're sustainable or we're accessible, whatever. And so I think you've almost got to do this twice, right? Once is that
yeah,
side, the visitor narrative side, but once is also the we're actually producing value for our community side. Like, it's a different audience with a different message. So I almost felt like you got to do this twice. One is like, is the performance of our marketing actually effective? Are we investing the taxpayers' dollars in an effective way? Are we being accountable for that? Are we
right.
being best stewards for our community? Is one for one audience, and then the other is what you're talking about, whereas are we living up to the standards that we're putting out? Because at the
Yes.
end of the day, we have to be seen by AI, by the visitors, and by our community as the source of truth, right? We have to be the authority. We have to live, breathe, and eat, EEAT, right? We have to
Right.
be that. But it's not
But
just our voice, like you said. It's bringing
yeah,
other voices. So making sure that there's parties that are on saying that same narrative
yeah,
are
and
actually on the
it's
same page as
really
us.
Yeah, it's really attacking it from both ends, because if you upload transparently your reporting, these simplified metrics and the why behind it, it's going to allow you to have that way to survive a political battle. Because if you
Hmm.
really do have somebody that's just going after your funding and wants to discount what you're saying in the boardroom, they could do their own research with their own AI. And let's say that
Hmm.
that AI pulls and crawls everything that you transparently uploaded into a PDF. It's like having that whiskey, it's like having it ready to go. That could
Hmm.
nearly cost your funding. It's the ability to give them your tools without actually having to say it. If they go and do their own research, which I believe many of our stakeholders in the future are just going to use AI to use it for any kind of research, they can say,
Hmm.
well, there's been countless times I've had a stakeholder say, I Googled this and is this true?
Hmm.
Now
Hmm.
they're going to say, I chat GPT this and it told
Are
me
you,
this.
are you getting that yet? We've had a couple. Every DMO,
Yeah,
every community has some detractors, right? So we've got some
right.
folks out there that are critical in general, and there's a couple of them have gone to our accountability reports. We try to publish everything we can. We go way beyond the legally required publication, and we publish more than most DMOs, and I'm glad we do. But they're weaponizing it. They are now
Yeah.
using AI. We publish a list line item of every invoice right? Who we paid, how much it was, when it was paid, and what it was for. And they're using AI now to data mine that. They couldn't have done that manually 2 years ago. It was too much data, but now they're using AI to say, hey, does this really, they're like scrutinizing, is this something that meets the requirements for this restricted fund or whatever like that. So we've had that a couple of times where we're having to debate back and forward or point out or just a little bit more work. I think you're right. I think that's coming. I think we're going to have to be more bulletproof. I think if any one
Well,
of those DMOs are trying to be the Wizard of Oz, they're going to get caught out here pretty soon if they haven't already.
but
Man,
it's fairly easy to build a channel on your Chat GPT conversations that mirrors the detractors that you have on your
for sure.
board. And if you're smart, you're running your reporting through that and saying, you are this person who really hates overspending in this category and doesn't
Hmm.
believe that likes and impressions or whatever is the metrics we should be following. So do me a favor, tear this apart for me so I can be prepared with possible objections going into that meeting. Everybody should be doing that before a board meeting at this point.
One of the best uses of AI, right, is having it role play as the critic or any kind of persona that you need to get their perspective of. It does a really
Yeah.
phenomenal job of that. So, guys, I hate to say it, I hate to be the party pooper, but we're at the top of the hour, and here's another. I feel like we should do like 10 episodes on this topic and just keep going. And maybe we'll end up in a place where we've defined the solution, right? Here are the
Right.
KPIs that really we should all be measuring. I kind of wish that existed in the destination space already. Maybe we'll bring more people to the
Right.
party and have them collaborate. Maybe we have
Yeah.
maybe we set up a meet up at DI or some of these other conferences where a bunch of smart people get around and we
We
sort of
define.
try to define it. Could be good. Could have a cage match between all the different KPIs. Which ones win? I don't know. I don't
We
know.
can do it. I
Maybe
mean,
not.
the future studies there.
Yeah. Well, Emily, thank you. I'm not going to assign any homework today, but Adam might. But because it is Adam's homework segment. But we'd love to have you
You
back
know
on
what?
and continue this conversation.
I'm not ready for that segment to be a thing.
Well, Adam, you need a
Yeah.
segment. I've got Stu's news. I think it's only time that you brought a segment to the show. Started
Sounds
pulling your weight, as it were.
I'll think about that. I wonder, since you always call me the evil vendor side, maybe I'll
Yeah.
bring some the dark side news or something like that every time. I don't know. We'll think about that.
All right, this is how this show is made, man. You get to see how the sausage is made with spitballing. You can tell it's a new year. I feel like we just came
Happy
off a
New
break.
Year.
We're a little bit all over the place today, but the substance was great. You brought your A game again, Emily. If they want to find out more about you and if you have any final thoughts for the audience,
Yeah.
now's your time.
Just follow me on LinkedIn. If you agree, disagree, have thoughts, I'd love to hear it. We're actively working through this as well, and it's a crazy environment that we're about to be in, and I think it's just important that we just prepare. So
Yeah.
I'm in this boat with everyone.
Yeah, I think never a true word spoken. We're all in this together in a way, right? We're going through the same thing. And so I'm sure if we put our minds together, we can find better solutions. Adam,
Yeah.
where can they find you?
Adam at thebrandrevolt.com. Find me on LinkedIn or, of course, on Tourism IQ.
Great. You can find me at Stuart. Butler at visitmyrtlebeach.com or on LinkedIn. Thank you for listening. This has been great. My brain is fried once again. So please leave a review if you like this. Please tell us what you found was the family-friendly beach destination that your
Yeah.
AI of choice gave you. We'd be interested.
Corpus
Hopefully
Christi,
it's Myrtle
Texas.
Beach or Corpus Christi. Yeah. But thank you for listening. Leave a review. Until next time, this has been Destination Discourse.
Thanks, everybody.